My name is Courtney Hines, and I am the Outreach Advocate at the Delaware County Board of Developmental Disabilities. And I am thrilled to introduce our presenter for the day. Um, Rick, Rick has been with OB Robot for just over 4 months. He is licensed and registered as an occupational therapist with over 9 years in the field and seven full-time with a random and complete rehab technology slash assistive technology. He also has an assistive background as he mostly includes auto care and no good in the within the field as both manager for leading mobility presenters in adaptive technology. Um, During his time in, he's been deployed with the U.S. Army Reserves as a combative therapist serving as an officer in charge of behavioral health clinic at Camp Bingling, um, with his wife of 7 years, his almost 3-year-old son, and 4-year-old golden retriever. Let's go ahead and take it away whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much, Courtney. I really appreciate the warm welcome and good afternoon to everybody. I am Ricky. I am an OT and ATP by trade and working with OB Robot as a product consultant. And so my role as a product consultant is I am basically a resource from when we get our initial interest from prospective consumers of OB, clinicians, payer sources, support groups like yourselves and other type of government entities. I cover the entire eastern part of the country, so large swath of territory, but have worked closely with different organizations within Ohio. So I'm very happy to be on here today and appreciate you all having me jump on and share more about OB. So, a quick background about OB for those who may not be familiar with why it was manufactured and what it's being used for today. But OB is a robotic arm that specializes in self-feeding for individuals who either have bilateral impairments of the upper extremities, whether that's paralysis, congenital from birth, acquired amputations, or other types of traumatic injuries. But OB is there to restore that independence as much as possible with self-feeding. It was developed in part by our founder, John Descartes, who spent much of his time developing the product in Ohio, as a matter of fact. So just a little fun fact for you. A lot of the roots of OB are in Ohio from when John was living there at the time, but it was designed specifically for personal um, scenarios and circumstances where John's grandfather had ALS and had issues with feeding from other people and around others as well. And then also when he was in college at Dayton and met a young lady with arthrogryposis who had a musculoskeletal condition that also impaired her ability to self-feed independently. So that was kind of the origin story of OB. And over the past decade or so, there have been different additions and modifications to OB, and we are currently in our second generation. OB is FDA cleared, meaning you can have access to it through certain healthcare benefits. Unfortunately, the one that we don't see as much success with currently is Medicare, but your state Medicaid policies, any type of specialty waiver programs, employer-based health insurance policies, all can and have funded OB before, including those within the state of Ohio. So there are opportunities for access for people that you may serve. So let's talk more about who are some people then that might benefit from OB. We talked about its uses for those with bilateral upper extremity impairments, then some common diagnoses that you might hear or people you might work with. Could it be anything with muscular dystrophy, spinal muscular atrophy, cerebral palsy, different types of congenital musculoskeletal conditions from birth, And then as we move along the lifespan, working with young adults and older adults, we think about things like ALS, MS, Parkinson's disease, and other types of neuroprogressive conditions that over time can and likely will affect bilateral upper extremity function. So that's kind of where we start when we think about who may benefit, and then we take into all of those different things like their funding sources, what type of support they have at home. Do they live in the community? Do they live in a type of skilled residence where they have nursing care 24/7? All of these things are very important to determine what type of pathway we take when trying to get OB. And so with that, we also think about things who may not be a good candidate for OB. What are some things that we might want to consider for someone who either is not ready currently or maybe down the road they might have better access to it functionally. So think about things like cognition. So OB uses switches to function. So someone really needs to have that basic understanding of cause and effect. So being able to hit a switch and understanding that the switch does a certain command. OB can function with one switches or two switches. Two switches provides the highest level of independence in functioning with the device, but certainly we can even make it as simple with a one switch type of system. But that's kind of the biggest precursor. Now, if there are some things like swallowing challenges, concerns of, different types of foods and, what it calls aspiration, exacerbations of things like reflux, and at worst, perhaps issues of choking hazards, well, we of course want to be very aware of those things before someone participates and uses an OB device at home. And so we'll do a pre-screening and think about these things. And some other things that you might want to be mindful of is if there are any active injuries or wounds or anything like that at the site where they might use a switch, or certainly within the mouth and oral cavity. We just want to make sure that the benefits of using an OB device would certainly outweigh the inherent risks that may be involved. But we really do lean on the clinical judgment of a licensed clinician. That can be your medical doctor, your occupational therapist, speech language pathologist, etc. Anyone who has direct care over an individual, we certainly advise on these things, but ultimately we leave it up to the clinician to make that determination about safety with use of the device. I'll pause here for just a brief moment if there are any questions about indications, contraindications, concerns, and then we'll move into more of a hands-on product demonstration. Probably what you're most interested in today. Okay, very good. So I'm going to switch over my camera to the star of the show, and that's Obi. So this is my Obi device that lives here with me in Virginia. So as you can see, Obi is very portable, compact, and lightweight. It weighs roughly 8 pounds and is easily able to fit on a small tray table. So Obi, when we think about it, we really want it to be accessible in as many environments and contexts as possible. So it was designed with that in mind, where you can have it for your morning breakfast. The caregiver can put it in a box or a backpack or whatever it might be for transportation, take it to work, take it to school, take it to the restaurant. We really truly want this to be a device that can meet the eating and feeding needs of an individual throughout the entire day. I will quickly go through how Obi would arrive in a box, and then we'll go over some of the accessories that go with it. So when an Obi is transported, it is going to be set up in what we call a transport position, and this is done purposely. The arms and the motors that are at the hinges here have a general idea of where it is in space. So by putting it in this position, if I were to turn the device on, it actually will not boot up, and it kind of gives me a little flashing error message. So that just tells me that I have to move the arm in a new position in order to get started. So gently and firmly, all I do is just move the arm back into what we call a record player position. For my vinyl record enthusiast, you'll know exactly what I mean. Otherwise, I might get some blank stares out there. And then now we can begin using Obi functionally. But let's go over some of the accessories that will always come with a Generation 2 Obi. The most important things are our spoons. So we have two different spoons currently available with Obi devices. one a more kind of classic and shallow spoon, and one that is a little bit deeper. They're roughly the same size and diameter, but one being a little bit deeper than the other, it might do slightly better with some things like soups than liquids, puree mixtures, anything that might have a little bit of risk of falling out the side of the spoon. So you do have a choice of using whichever spoon you want to. You can go back and forth through the mealtime routine. It's really up to you. They use magnets to attach, and I will demonstrate how that works. All we do is just move the head into position. There is a little connector piece here with a spoon icon. All we do is line up the magnet with that icon and it clicks right in place. Super easy. We'll move it back over here, and then we can just leave the other spoon on standby. The plate that is used with OB is specifically designed to have four different compartments here, so you can have up to four different food choices at one time. Now, the plate is very specifically manufactured, so that way when the spoon dives in, and gets the food out, it goes through a very specific sequence of steps, which we'll see in a moment. We have a fill line here that gives a visual cue. Might be a little hard to see. I'll get a little closer here. And this is how we know how much food to put into the bowls at one time. If we have too much food, too little food, then the device may not work just right. So we think of this more so an optimal fill line. So when a caregiver is going in and putting food in the bowls, we do recommend using this fill line as the place to start. Now, someone could have for the same food, they can only do one compartment. It's really up to the user how much food they want to have at one time, when to eat it, and in which way to eat it. So that's the plate. It has a catch plate that goes underneath of it, and these sit right on top of each other like this, nice and neat. And then we just put it back on the device like so. The plates and the spoons are all dishwasher safe. So even with commercial grade dishwashers at facilities and certain health institutions, they should do just fine. Now, of course, because the magnets are on the spoons, we don't recommend putting these in the microwave, of course, but the plates can go in the microwave for 30 seconds to a minute to reheat food. We don't recommend cooking food in them, but certainly if we just need to zap something to get it a little bit warmer before eating, you certainly can do that. Next, moving on to our switches. Right now, we will always include two buddy button switches. So they look like this. They are mechanical in nature. So you hit it, it makes a nice clicking sound audibly. And we will send two switches with use of an OB device. These switches don't inherently have any specific functioning. All they do is use this stereo jack or a mono jack input, you may hear it called, in your daily life. Really old kind of headphones and what we would have used with old CD players, for instance, no longer the nice Bluetooth headphones that you may see and use in your daily life right now. These will go into the ports on the device to do a command. So OB has two ports then. One port is what we use to deliver the bite to the user, and the other port switches between the four different compartments. Now, like I mentioned earlier, we do have an option to do a single switch mode. So that way, if someone was having a hard time grasping the concept of the cause and effect and remembering perhaps what one switch did versus another, we can remove a switch. And after every third bite, it will automatically transition to the next bowl, making it as simple as can be. But so now that we have our spoon attached, our arm in what we call the record player position, our switches are in. Let's say we have our food in our bowls ready to go. And what we recommend for food preparation is have it be roughly the size of the spoon or smaller. So when we send out OB devices for, let's say, trialing, we'll include a quick start guide that comes with it, and it goes over this in more detail. But general rule of thumb is we do not want food to be bigger than this spoon when prepared, and even smaller is better. So roughly the size of a raspberry or the size of a blueberry is even better. So for me, I have Hershey Kisses, Reese Cups, and a Hershey's Nugget. So not quite a healthy meal, but this is something that OB can certainly handle. All right. So let's go ahead and boot up Obi. I mentioned earlier that the power button is right here. It doesn't require any force to activate it, just static electricity from your finger. Just going to rest my finger over it. Obi will go into a boot up sequence. I'll give it a moment to demonstrate. Obi will always turn, spin, and bow to the user. And that's where Obi kind of gets his name. Obi is actually short for the word obeisance. For our literary experts, that's a word for dignity and respect. So bringing that dignity and respect back to the mealtime routine for individuals. From here, we are ready to use Obi, but perhaps the most important thing before use is teaching Obi where to deliver a bite. Of course, everyone is going to be eating in different positions. Some are going to be at tabletop, some are going to be in their wheelchair with trays. So we want to make sure that we're teaching Obi where to deliver a bite best. So what we do, I'm going to touch the teach button, which is right next to my power button on the base. On the arm is a second teach button. I'm going to use my hand, grab the arm, use my thumb over the teach button, and move the arm into a specific position to bring a bite. So let's say this is where I need to bring it. Obi will maintain that position when I let go. I will go back to the base, hit the teach button one more time. Obi will go back, nod, and acknowledge that that was a successful command. Now, let's say if I wanted to try it again, let's say we're at the restaurant now, we were at home before, and I need to reteach Obi. If I move Obi and it doesn't like the position that I want to choose, it's going to actually shake its head at me and flash, saying, that's actually not a good position for me. So it gives you more feedback to make a well-informed decision about where best. So if it's too low, if it's too high, if it's too close, Obi's not going to consider that a good position to deliver a bite. So once again, I hit the teach button and we're ready to go. Obi will go back and nod, acknowledging that position. So now I get to use my switches. So my black switch is plugged into the port that delivers the bite. I will go ahead and hit the switch. Obi will dive down into the bowl in a pre-programmed sequence, scoop, scrape along the side, and deliver that Hershey Kiss into that same exact position that I just set up before. Now, I have about 60 seconds to take my bite off the spoon before the spoon will go back automatically. However, I would assume most people would prefer to eat their food without the spoon just hanging out in their face. So what we can do then is just hit the switch again, and the spoon goes back ready for the next command. Now, this is really the beauty of it is that the user is in full control over the pacing of the mealtime. Now, as long as there aren't any type of external constraints like a schedule or anything like that, the battery lasts 4 hours. So you do not have to feel like you need to rush through this if it's going to die in 30 minutes or an hour. You can really take your time with it. And so let's say then I did a few bites in this bowl and I want to move on to the next one. So then I just hit the other switch, my white switch in this case, and Obi will move one bowl at a time in a counterclockwise manner. So let's see if I will get a Reese cup. I will then hit my black switch again. Obi will dive down. Let's see if I can get my Reese cup. Well, nope, it messed up. So if I do that, if I had an issue where Obi either did not accurately get what I wanted or something fell off, I can hit the switch before it finishes. Obi will go back, scrape along the edge, and get ready for the next bite. Sometimes some of these foods that are harder and kind of wiggly when they roll around in the bowl, sometimes they can get a little bit stuck and may not get on the food or on the spoon just right. So I'm going to try adding one or two more Reese cups in there and see if I have better success. So I'll start over again, go down in here. Obi will scoop in that same pre-programmed manner. There we go. And I got my Reese cup instead. And now Obi will go right back into that same exact position. 60 or so seconds to take my bite. I can either wait for it, or again, I can hit the switch to send Obi right back, ready for the next bite, and so on and so forth. Then we just continue to work our way through the meal, one bowl at a time, one bite at a time at my own pace, eating the food that I want to eat at that time. Now, let's say that the user eats all of the food in one particular bowl, and they want more food to be added back into it. You can do that. One thing to be mindful of, though, that I haven't mentioned yet, is that OB will actually count internally. There's no like visual cue or anything like that, but OB's counting how many scoops it does per bowl. The first three scoops will be what we call a half scoop. So it's only going to go about halfway into the bowl and come back up to try and avoid getting too much food on the spoon at one time. So then after that third scoop, it will go all the way through. It will even change the trajectory that it comes into the bowl to try and capture as much food as possible at one time. So, because of that, if we want to add more food back into it, and let's say we've had 6 or 7 bites, Obi's going to do a full scoop. So then what we try and advise there is maybe not fill it all the way back up to the fill line, especially if you're working with a younger person. Let's go ahead and maybe put 50% or just kind of play with it and see what's easier because Obi's going to do that full scoop per bowl. Or what you could do, this is not something that I would, certainly recommend if you want to make it as easy as possible. You can always turn the device off, turn it back on again, and it does reset the count from there. But it also will save the position that we taught the device to do. So again, gives you as much freedom as possible to use it. So from there, then, it's all about just eating the meal again at that pace and in the exact way that the user wants to during the mealtime experience. And then when setup is all complete, again, the plates, the spoons can be cleaned, can be put in the dishwasher for next time. You can always buy more accessories, include more accessories, and switch them out in between different meals. And then you can just use your favorite sanitary wipe for the base itself, of course, because there's all kinds of electronics and nice doodads in here. We don't want to put them in submerged water or anything like that. This is an electronic device and we need to be careful about that. So we just recommend using your preferred sanitary wipe on the actual robotic base and arm itself. And Obi is giving me a little gesture here, just saying, hey, I'm still here. You haven't given me command in a couple of minutes. Just want to make sure that we're still eating. And after a little bit more time, what you may see before we conclude our call today is Obi might go into a sleep mode, or he'll just kind of rest his head back down here. And if I don't give him a command, the arm will just kind of stay out of the way of the plate of food. All right. So I know that we had about a half hour today, so I want to make sure that I give enough time for any questions. And that is Obi. So yes, I will open up to questions now.
All right. I'm monitoring both our Facebook Live and our Q&A. Are there any questions from any participants? Oh, there is one. Okay, so
Okay.
not a question, but this is so impressive.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, a lot of attention, a lot of really long hours have gone into this device to make it as well-rounded as it is today. And, there might be some more things coming on the near horizon. So please stay tuned for that. And we'll be sure to reach out with any updates if and when they do come in the near future. Yes, there is always room for improvement. And so we are looking forward to sharing all the new things that are coming with OB very soon.
Any more questions, Valerie, or was that it?
I think we are good. I think that's I don't see any other questions. So
Thank
Okay,
you, Ricky.
terrific.
You answered all my questions, so thank you very much for doing this.
Absolutely. Well, again, I really appreciate you all inviting me on today. I'll just leave you with one quick shout out to our trial program. So if you do work with any individuals who you think may be a good candidate, please reach out to me. If you want, I can also type in my information in the chat. That way everyone has it. But yeah, please reach out to me. We can talk about it, do any pre-screenings, and then our trial program program is a free service that we provide. We will ship a device to a clinician who is working with someone that you may also work with for about a week-long period where they can have the device in their home, use it, try it, see if it's going to work for them, in hopes of funded by their health insurance. So we do happily collaborate with therapists all over the country and are very happy to provide an OB device, of course, pending that everything looks good on a pre-screening with me. So I did want to just mention that as well. And let me type in my information here really quick. So I will include my email and phone. All right. There we go.
And I will add that to our Facebook Live too. Thank you, Chase, for doing that at our last webinar. I didn't think about having that information in more than one place. Anything else, Courtney?
No, thank you very much, Ricky. I appreciate it.
Of course, again, many, many, many thanks to you all for including me today and giving the opportunity to share OB. It was a pleasure.
Have a good one, everybody.
Yes, have a good day. You all take care.